So I made a comment on Identity Sunday yesterday, and a brother asked me, "What do you mean there was no Exodus like the way it is said in the Bible?" I mean, everything is so clear in the Bible that the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt, and they came out of Egypt. I felt it was only right that I tackled it, right? And I'm not going to go anywhere. I showed you from Genesis and Exodus how the story doesn't add up. Stay tuned. Aquaba. Today I had to be on the decks because there's a lot of calculations going to go on and all of that. So I brought you to the decks today. Hope you enjoyed the weekend. Hope you enjoyed the Identity Sunday. And I mean, it was awesome, right? It was awesome, right? But let me quickly respond to this question. I'm trying not to take much of your time today, but let me just see if I can address this question right quick. Everything shows in Genesis and Exodus, the brother said. How did they not exit Egypt or leave Egypt? It's clear in the scriptures. It's clear. Were the children of Israel in Egypt for 400 years? That is the question. Let's go to Genesis 15. I'm trying to do it shortly. Genesis 15. And let's read from Genesis 15, let's read from 12 to 16. Let's read from 12 to 16. And the 12 tribes of Israel were not in Egypt for 400 years. At least not according to scripture. But we've all been made to think that no. They were in slavery for 400 years. So let's check it out. Because Genesis 15 will clearly give us the figure of how many years they were supposed to stay in bondage. So Genesis 15, we start from 13. It says, "Then he said to Abraham, know certainly," this is the Most High saying to Abraham, "know certainly that your descendants would be strangers in a land not their own, and they will be enslaved, and they would afflict them for 400 years." What is wrong here? Yes, he said they would be in affliction for 400 years. And the keynote to take here is, 1, they will be enslaved, and 2, they will be afflicted. You can be enslaved, serving, but not afflicted. But in this case, they will be enslaved and they will be afflicted. So from Abraham, which is Yabrim, to Exodus was 430 years. There's no way possible they were in Egypt for 400 years. From Abraham to the Exodus to Canaan, I'll show you scriptures about this, was 430 years. So if right from Abraham all the way to Canaan, 430 years, then how is it possible that they were in Egypt for 400 years? How do I know it started from Abraham? Because it says what? "By the nation enslaving them, I will judge, and afterward they will come out with great possession. Now, as for you," so now it was talking about the current, starting from the current time. "Now, as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace, and you will be buried in full age. But in the 4th generation, they shall return here." So it's giving us an idea that in the 4th generation, they shall return here. So when you calculate, the 4th generation should also give you a clue of how long they are supposed to spend in Egypt before they exit, according to Genesis, right? Let's go to Exodus 12:40. I'm trying to do it really fast here. Let's go to Exodus 12:40. Exodus 12:40 says, "Now the sojourning of the children of Israel and of their fathers, which they sojourned in the land of Canaan, the land of Egypt, was 430 years." Ooh. Do you get it? Now the sojourning of the children of Israel and their fathers, which they sojourned in the land of Canaan and the land of Egypt for 430. So it's saying that the entire, and this is the evidence that indeed this starts from Abraham. From Abraham, the journey they went through, because Abraham was standing in Canaan, right? So right from Canaan all the way through to Egypt till they came out was 430 years. So give and take, is it possible that, okay, wait, hold on, wait a minute, Abraham was prophesied to and 30 years was in Egypt? That's not even possible, right? So one of the things we need to understand here is that the word sojourned means what? To transit, or to be a temporal resident of a particular area. Those of you who are English scholars, you can help me with the terminology. Sojourned, what does it mean? It means you transited. It's not a place you basically stayed temporary. It was a place you were staying permanent. It wasn't a place you stayed permanently. It was a place you were staying temporary till you get to where you are going. So Egypt here was, according to Genesis, not me, not my words, right? The Tanakh says what? Now the time that the children of Israel dwelt in Egypt was 430. Now, the time that the children of Israel dwelt in Egypt was 430, right? But it says so the sojourning, the transit in the land of Canaan and the land of Egypt was 430 years old, according to Exodus 20, verses 40, right? So sojourn means transit. Sojourned does not mean enslaved. It means these people knew exactly where they were going, and they passed through a particular place that wasn't their permanent place. So they dwelt there. When you take the time, it says they dwelt there. It does not necessarily mean they were enslaved there. They sojourned, they passed through that place, right? The only how we can prove that this test is right is to compare to history and find out exactly when this happened. That's the only, because if this, something of such magnificent what happened in Egypt, then at least history should give us some timelines that suggest exactly when they left, where they got to, how they got to. History should say that, right? Okay. The problem is history does not support that claim of Exodus at all, whether it was about the truth of the story itself or the timing of it. So there's nowhere in history that affirms of the Exodus story, because history should have given us, made it easy for us. We just go and then the evidence are there, not people thinking, not people reading according to this, according to scripture, but the evidence are actually there that tells us that there were a group of people who were slaves here and they left here at this time. But sadly, there's no evidence of such history. So the only thing we are left with is the scriptures that they presented to us, okay? Most scholars claim the family moved to Egypt around 1876 BC. Most scholars, but here's the split. It is the exit of them that the scholars are not sure, because they all believe that they went into Egypt around 1876 BC. But the exit strategy, the exit plan is what nobody, or the date of exit is what nobody knows. So some scholars are purging it around 1446 BC. But if we take 1446 BC out of 1876 BC, we have 430 years. These scholars that are saying for 1446 are actually confirming to what Exodus is saying, because that gives them 430 years, right? But the prophecy to Abraham was they will be there for 400 years. So this in a way does not really qualify. Where did the 30 years come from? Okay. Other scholars say that Exodus happened around 1270 BC. Again, if you take 1876 BC out of 1270 BC, you have about 606 years. That is way over, almost times 2 of what Exodus 12 is telling us. So how do we get the actual time That will show us that indeed they were in Egypt for 400 years. Let's move on. Let's go to Exodus 1 through to 14, and let's read the summary of this story that we are talking about today. And these are the names of the sons of Israel who entered Egypt with Jacob or Jacob, each with his family. They came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Yada, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. All the sons who came from the lions of Jacob were 70 persons. For Yosef was in Egypt already, so they didn't include Yosef, neither did they include his children, but all the sons from Jacob that came into Egypt was 70. Please keep the figures, because every single figure we mention here is important. Now, Yosef and all his brothers and all the generation died in Egypt. That is also very significant. Now, Yosef and all the generation died in Egypt. But the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly, multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them. Then a new king who did not know Yosef, again, mark that down, came to power in Egypt, and he said to his people, "Look, the people of children of Israel are more numerous and powerful than we are. Come, let us deal surely with them, or they will increase even more numerously. And if war breaks out, then they may join our enemies and fight against us. Then they will leave this land." So they put slave drivers over them to oppress them with forced labor. And they built Pithom and Ramesses. They built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they oppressed them, so meanwhile, they say the children of Israel, they were the one who built the pyramids and all of that, right? But that's not true. History doesn't support that anyways. So the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor and crushing oppression, because the more they oppress them, the more they multiply. So now they were just oppressing them. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar, in bricks, and all manner of service in the field. In all their hard labor, the Egyptians used them ruthlessly. So these were builders. When has the white race be the builders of a city? Let's go through all the ancient cities. Anyway, let me continue. Let's break the verses down, and let's start from verses 1. How did the children of Israel get to Egypt? Because according to the promise, the descendants will be strangers. So how did the children of Israel from Abraham and from Jacob get to Egypt? We can evidently say that they were not taken as strangers, but they were already in Egypt according to this story when the story started. They were not strangers there. They were already living there, and they lived there for years. So most of them, I'm sure, had naturalized, even if that existed at that time. Because even if they lived just for 70 years, 70 years is a long time for anybody to feel a part of any place. Let's take our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. Most of them don't even want to be called Africans, right? Because they have been there for 400 plus years or 400 years. So therefore, it means when anybody stays at a particular place over a period of time, they automatically lose where they are from. So by this time, majority of them will lose. Their identity will lose. How many of our brothers and sisters in the diaspora knows where they are coming from or where their ancestors came from, if it's not for DNA testing? If it's not for companies like Ancestry.com that tells you that this and that. How? So obviously these children of Israel were not strangers in Israel. So let's look at verses 5 and compare something here, okay? It says something. And all the sons who came from the lions of Jacob were 70 years, for Joseph was in Egypt already. So all the children who came, right? Let's try and break it down. Let's compare Genesis 46, 8 to 11. Genesis 46, 8 to 11 says, Now these were the name of the children of Israel, Jacob and his sons, who went to Egypt. Reuben was Jacob's firstborn. The sons of Reuben were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. The sons of Simeon were Yamiel, Yamin, Ohad, Yachim, Zohar, Shaul, the son of the Canaanite woman. Every time there's an agenda coming, they say something. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohat, and Merari. The sons of Yada were Onan, Zillah, Perez, Zerah. But and Onam died in the land of Canaan. The sons of Perez were Ziron, Hamiel. The sons of Issachar were Tola, Pua, Yashab, Shimron. The sons of Zebulun were Shiret. So it goes on and on and on and on, right? And lists all the sons. But I needed us to look specifically into the sons of verses 11. Says, now the sons of Simeon, verses 11 says, now the sons of Levi were Gershon, Gohat, and Merari. Were Gershon, Gohat, and Merari. This we need to remember these names, right? Okay. Exodus 6, 16 to 20. And I read, these were the names of the sons of Levi according to their begotten: Gershon, Gohat, Merari. And Levi lived 137 years. So mark that down. It is supposed that Levi died in Egypt, right? Levi died in Egypt 100. So Levi spent at least more than 70, 80 years, give or take. Let's even say if he was 50 at the time he moved to Egypt, it means he spent about 80 years. Am I getting my math right? It was 50 years. Yeah, he spent about 8 to 7 years, right? So if 8 to 7 years is the case in Egypt, that is a whole long time. Remember, Yasif was 110 years old. So probably he died before his brother. Does it make sense? Okay, let's continue. Another thing we need to look at, the son of Gershon were Libni, Shimei, according to their clans. And the sons of Kohat were Amram. The sons of Koham were Amram. And Kohat lived, the sons of Kohat were Amram. And Kohat lived 133 years. So Kohat also lived 133 years, right? Then we go to verses 20. He says what? Now Amram married Yakshebeth, his father's sister, and she bore him Aaron and Moses. And Amram lived 136 years, 137 years. So Gohat lived 133. Aram lived 137. So let's calculate the ages, because if it's 3 generations, if in Genesis 15, the Most High say, and in the 4th generation, they will return, according to Genesis story, they will return in the 4th generation. It means that Isaac should be 1 generation, right? Or if you want to play it, let's take to Jacob 1 generation, to Levi 2 generations, to Kohat 3 generations, and to Amram 4th generation. Does that make sense? Or let's even take Jacob 1st generation, Levi 2nd generation. I'm trying to make sense. Or let's say Jacob 1st generation, Kohat 2nd generation, Amram 3rd generation, Moses 40. Either way, when you do it, it doesn't even add up, right? But let's pretend this is how the generations were made. When we add 133 years of Kohath to 137 years of Amram, that gives us what? 2, 6, 10, 1. So that gives us 270 years, right? The 2 would give us 270 years. When you add the 80 years of Moses when he started his ministry, the time he brought them out of Egypt, that would be 350 years plus 270. That would 270 plus 80, that would be 350 years. It means even if you add them, it wouldn't be up to the 400 years. But the mistake is when you go and add the age of Levi to that number, 350 would be 487. It still won't add up. So is it 350 or 487? Which is which? And if we are adding it in this way, it means that Kohath gave birth to Amram the last day that he was alive, so that Amram can also continue his 137 years before Moses. It doesn't add up. So obviously some would be born meeting each other, right? So when we go according to the age difference or the aging between Jacob and Amram and Moses, it doesn't make up to 400 years. So we still haven't discovered how they were in Egypt for 400 years. Let's continue. Verse 6 says what? And Yasif and all his brothers died. When we compare to Genesis 50 verses 22, it tells us that Yasif was also 110 years old. So the children of Israel were in Egypt for about 71 years before Yasif died. So when I say Yasif, I mean Joseph. Yasif died, right? So because he lived 110 years. Yasif was 39 years before he died. It was 39 years before his brothers joined him. So when you add 39, or when you deduct 39 from 110, you get 71. So that means that the children of Israel lived in Egypt for at least 70 plus years before Joseph died. So the first 70 plus years that they were in Egypt, they were not in slavery. So if you want to connect them, even by the figures I've given you, 70 years of Moses Yasif existence, there was nothing like slavery. Okay, let's continue. Genesis 50:23 shows that the increase started before Joseph's death or Yasif's death, since he saw the third generation of his people plus a couple of more years. You understand? So let's go to, you see, I'm telling you, when they wrote the scripture, they didn't think people like you would want to learn. I'm telling you, if they did, they would have done a better job. So Genesis 50:23 says what? And he saw the third generation of Ephraim, the children of Micah, son of Manasseh, were placed at bed of Yasif's knee, and they counted as his. So it shows that if they started, it means that what? The children of Israel started multiplying before Joseph's death. So they started increasing, they started multiplying before Yasif's death, right? Because Yasif saw the third generation, his son's son. He was the first generation, the son was second generation, the son was the third generation. So when you take from Abraham and you're counting the fourth generation, it will be Abraham first generation, Isaac second generation, Jacob third generation, right? And then who? Manasseh and Ephraim, fourth generation. Or when you go to Levi, Kohath, fourth generation. It still don't add up. Like, no matter where you take the numbers just don't add up. Okay, but I still want to show you some few things if you haven't really paid attention to these things. So they lived 70 plus years before Joseph dies, or 71 precisely, before Joseph dies. And this 71 years, they were in there enjoying, not in slavery. Okay. The verse 7 shows clearly that they were very okay and living very comfortably at the time, and there was no slavery. Let's read the verse 7. And this was after the death. The verse 7 is even after the death of Joseph. So it says, but the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Every single word that is coming out here is important. The children of Israel were fruitful, increased abundantly. So at this time they were abundant, right? They increased and multiplied and grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. So this shows clearly, years after Joseph had died, they were still, or Yosef had died, they were still multiplying and they were still increasing. Okay, verses 8 says what? What says what? A new king arose, and the king did not know. A new king arose, and the king did not know Joseph. Let's break that down. How long did it take the children of Israel to enjoy before this king came up? How long? And then when this king came up, this king now came to a point where he didn't remember. You need to understand, before a king, if a whole nation is staying in your province, and you, the king, does not remember anything about this nation's history, then either you, the king, you are blockheaded, or their history just didn't exist. When we fast forward to the story of Esther, when the king came and Haman was trying to set up Mordecai, the king was brought a book that had remembrance of everything that Mordecai did. How long does it take a whole nation to forget such heroic act of Yosef? How long? Because, mind you, the children of Egypt were about to die. The Most High gives a revelation to Yosef, and Yosef, I'm too excited in my spirit. Let me calm down. And Yosef did great, saved the entire nation. They fed for 7 years with no hunger. How can a whole king not remember this? How long has Bob Marley died? We still remember the music of Bob Marley. How long? How long has Martin Luther King died? We still remember. Martin Luther King didn't make the people feed for 7 years. How long has Malcolm X died? But we still remember. Even those of us in Ghana, how long has Kwame Nkrumah died for? We still remember. I didn't meet Kwame Nkrumah. I didn't meet him. I don't know nothing about him, except what I've read from history. And anytime I talk about Kwame Nkrumah, it feels personal. You understand? Mind you, Egypt at that time were the leading people when it comes to documenting stuff. So are we saying the entire nation of Israel, or Egypt, sorry, didn't document this pivotal period of their history? The pivotal period of their history that a whole nation, people who came with 70, has multiplied into a whole nation, and you don't have account of who they are? This wasn't 400 years when this new king came. When you ask our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, some of them still have parents who remember where they are from because their mothers told them stories that told the next generation stories. So how is it that there's no records, there's no archives, nothing? Till date, nothing has come out of Egypt that says that a group of people called Israel were here. Just like there's no nothing. How weird is this? Okay, let's continue. Verses 9 says, when has the children of any race been more numerous than the black race? I want to ask you. It says what? And the king said to his people, look, the people of the children of Israel are more numerous and more powerful than we are. Let's stay on the number first. When have we ever heard, since we came into existence, that there's any race on the face of the earth that is more than the children of Israel? Listen, a lot of people get it twisted and say the children of the Chinese are more than any race on the face of this earth. That is absolutely false. The Chinese are not more than any race. Africa, as it stands now, is about 1 point something billion. The entire continent of Africa, 1 point something billion, right? We haven't included those, the black race. We haven't included those in the Caribbeans. We haven't included those in India. We haven't included those in the Asian continent. We haven't included those in Australia. We haven't included those in Europe. We haven't included those in America. So how is it that any other race is more than the black race? Because obviously when you read the story, they make it sound like the children of Israel here are not the black people. How does this conform? Mind you, the reason why even Africa's number is a billion now is because the slave trade killed millions. And if over 200 millions of people died at that time, if we should do the stats and multiply that to this current age, Africa should be about 3+ billion people. Don't forget all the vaccinations that they brought to this continent to eradicate us. All the contraceptive they've introduced. Listen, the white man has spent billions of dollars producing contraceptive and vaccinations for us to cut down our number. Who says they care about us? They don't. They don't care about us. You understand? So, how is... Because Egyptians were black. Why am I coming out with this? Egyptians were black at this time. So there was a white race that was more numerous than a black race. And not just more numerous, we're more mighty. When have we ever heard in our history that any race is stronger than a black man? So how is this talking about white people? They were numerous, one, and they were mighty. I mean, if it's not for recent time, when they see a black man coming, they run. When they see two black men coming they run. So when was any race stronger than us? To say that what? The Egyptians that were black, this white race were all of a sudden more than the Egyptians. You took 70 to a people that were already millions. And now all of a sudden, a white race, you are giving more bets. Come on. If by this time you are not getting that this whole story is made up, it means we've got a lot to discuss, right? And I'm willing to teach until you come into the truth. The reason for coming after the children of Israel is so weak because they were... That he said what? Let me read it. Come, let us deal surely with them, or they would increase and even more numerous. If war breaks out, then they may join our enemies and fight against us. How could this reason be the reason why the king will want to fight against or enslave the Israelites living there? Let's take our brothers in the United States. How many times have America gone to war and most of their soldiers were black men? How many times? How is America ever going to defend Russia? Or if the black Americans ever going to join Russia to kill the white Americans? Because they feel that America, they feel like Canada, they feel like UK, they feel like they are there. That is where they are from. Most people don't want to come to Africa, you know. So I would say that the reason why they would turn against us is because they would go out and join our enemies and come and fight us. Come on. So the question now is, so the 11, verses 11 says so. So they put slave drivers. So now let me ask the question. When did the slavery start? Because they've already spent numerous of years enjoying, chilling, growing, increasing. So when did the slavery start? Let's even give it about 200 years of luxury. Right? And if the journey from Abraham to Canaan, through Canaan to Exodus was 430, then there's no way this can fit the promise, because the promise is even 400 years. So therefore, the promise the Most High made, according to the same scripture, I haven't gone anywhere, to Abraham was supposed to last 400 years to see their return. And I want to bet that the reason why they said 4 generations, because every generation was supposed to last a century. I'm doing my math, so at least you can do. I know normally they say generations are 40 years, but what should I say? At this point, how are we going to prove that this 400 years promised to Abraham was actually what happened in Egypt, the Egypt they are claiming? The Most High said they will be in slavery for 400 years. Moses said they will be in slavery, or Kwekumosi, they will be in slavery, or they were in slavery for 430 years. Genesis 1 is saying, I read it, right? $430 years. Genesis 12. I read it. 38. 40 says what? And the journey of the children of Israel and their fathers, which they journeyed in the land of Canaan, of Egypt, in the land of Canaan and land of Egypt, was 430. So most I say it's 400 years. These calculations don't show that they were there be enslaved for 400 years. It doesn't show. One may ask, is this so important? Is proving this going to change anything? Is proving that the children of Israel were not, the so-called children of Israel were not enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, prove anything? Listen, let me ask you something. If these people went any length to cook up a lie to make you and I believe that the children of Abraham, the seed of Abraham, right, it was the seed of Abraham were imprisoned in first Egypt for 430 years, if they went that far to defend this lie, don't you want to know why they lied? Don't you want to know why the lies? Don't you want to know? It's within your rights to know. So yes, it changes everything. 2 things. It changes that our people were never slaves in Egypt. The second fact is that these Ashkenazi Jews were never in Egypt. Ooh. Yes. There's never been an Israelite story being enslaved in Egypt, and I just used the scriptures. I didn't go anywhere. Just 2 places, Genesis and Exodus, to show you that the numbers don't add up. So I need anybody to show me where this 400 years in affliction and enslavement happened. But wait a minute. There's a group of people, though, that for 400 years now, the abolishment of slavery happened. I'm not saying anything. I'm not pointing any fingers. I'm just saying the numbers, the history don't support that there was anything as children of Israel being in Egypt for 400 years in slavery. History don't support it. We have gone to the same place that this prophecy was done or was said or was given, and the numbers don't add up. So who and where were the slaves for 400 years. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please, if you enjoyed it, make sure you bring a brother, you bring a sister to like it and know that we are uncovering all the lies. I remember when I started the New Testament, people were going like, every time Jesus. I said, no. That's not even, I haven't even started the things that I've been asked to teach. I'm just laying foundations. Now I'm tackling a lie in Exodus, and people are asking me, are you saying we're not slaves in Egypt? No, you were not slaves in Egypt for 400 years. It didn't happen. It's not true. That is a lie. Prove me in the very scripture who lived as slaves in Egypt for 400 years. Stay blessed. I love you guys. Make sure you hit the subscription button if it's your first time. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do it. And please hit 200 this week. Can we do that? I believe everything is possible. I know we can hit 200 this week. Stay blessed. I love you guys. I'll come your way tomorrow with something exciting. Don't go anywhere. And Wednesday, let's talk health. Wednesday, let's talk health. On Wednesday, let's talk health on Wednesday. Stay blessed. I love you. Tomorrow will be amazing. Don't miss it for anything. Stay blessed.